There's a house without a hardly la 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 la. This is even to be daddy la 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 la. Talking now I get a bit of la la la. Talking to me I get a la la la. Jesus is in you before la 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 la. That's the way it is. You can't say la 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 la. Helping me here, acting like it. La 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 la. Be rejoicing. Jesus, that's the one in weather. Without the honey, la 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 la. This is even to be daddy, la 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 la. Now, show me that you can love.
Salutation. Festive greeting, I'm the Legion of Elves and Reindeer. Welcome to Podcast of Storm, where social awkward snowmen, crazy stalking stuff, and all of our naughty list members convene to talk and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the Jolly Holly Bookworm, aka the FN Skitter, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Good evening, everyone. We are now in the time of year where all that's left to do is wait for things to be shipped, and it's starting to give me conniptions because stuff that I've ordered from my brothers might be late, and that bugs me.
And I am your host.
But other than that, things are going reasonably well. So slowly closer to Christmas Day. Yay.
I am your host, Santa Claus Burglar, that brings more pop culture. How's everyone doing tonight?
I am doing okay, apart from the aforementioned waiting game.
Alright, Alright, yeah, okay, so, Alright, so don't send this to me actually pretty recently. What was the reason you gave me why you sent this to me today, Dalton?
Full disclosure, I completely forgot it was Sunday, and then like at 6 o'clock I went, shit, I have to find an article for this week. So I was literally like down to the wire on this. Like I said, I've been busy trying to get gifts for people and paranoidly hoping that things arrive on time. I haven't even technically ordered the stuff I'm getting brainstorming this year yet. Hopefully that will be tomorrow, and then it will be shipped probably the day of.
Actually, speaking of which, are you gonna need my address again?
No, I think I still have it in my Amazon thing from last year, and I know I have it on Etsy from the year before last when I got you your mask. So
Okay.
I don't think I will be needing it. I will double check as soon as this stream is over and let you know, though, just to
Okay.
be sure.
All right. So yeah, Dawn sent this to me. This was originally from refinery29.com. Like Christmas films, obsessed with rewarding toxic men for bad behavior. This was published December 15th, 2023, or updated, and written by Alice Porter.
That was one of the reasons I sent this one, because I knew there was no way in hell we had done it before, because, well, it had just been released like 2 days ago. Amazingly convenient for us.
Yeah. All right. Christmas. Okay, so it's talking about rom-coms. So I might not have much to say. All right. So Christmas rom-coms tend to fall on the so good it's bad side of cinema. Simple plot lines and gushy moments make them easy and enjoyable viewing, particularly during the festive season when you're feeling that little bit more sentimental. However, rewatching some of my old favorites like Love Actually and The Holiday, and discovering new takes on the genre, mostly courtesy of Netflix's original Christmas films, The Christmas Prince, The Night Before Christmas, and Love Hard. I realize that my sentimentality has blinded me to the obvious issue with all of these films. They're all about toxic men, whether they're gaslighting their love interest, asking for the most while doing the bare minimum, or perpetuating misogynistic beliefs. The one thing the men in all my favorite Christmas films have in common is that they expect women to fix them. Wow.
Sweetheart, you really don't want to pull on the thread of who is entitled to what in romance movies, because the majority audience for all romance fiction is women, whether it be straight romance or gay romance, which I find it hilarious that straight women seem to obsess over gay men in the same way that straight men obsess over lesbian porn. But that's neither here nor there. If we're talking about entitlement to romance, my dear, do we really want to go over the fact that almost every romance plotline ever features a deliberately average blank slate of a woman character getting lavish shit thrown at her by high class, upper crust, model pretty men? So let's not play the romance entitlement card, shall we? Let's just let everyone enjoy their romantic self-insert nonsense. It like I don't like I admit I do consume mostly gay romance stories at this point because, well, duh. But as a general rule, I am a fan of chick flicks. A large part of the reason is because me and my mom used to bond over chick flicks, which probably should have been a clue to one or both of us that I was gay long before I, developed the sexuality. But oh well. In any case, I have experienced a lot of, cheesy romance stuff, and it's best if you don't approach romance from a cynical point of view, because if you approach romance from a cynical point of view, the entire thing just comes unraveled. Because once you get this, feminist myopia out of your brain, you realize that both characters in any given romance story tend to be hyper hyper competent, unrealistic, and entitled. So let's not pull out one end of the thread and act like the other end of the thread doesn't exist. But anyway, moving on.
Take for example one of Netflix's recent pitchy Christmas rom-coms, Love Hard. from a couple Christmases ago. It follows Natalie, Nina Dobrev, who travels 3,000 miles across America just before Christmas to surprise the man she has been virtually dating for the past 2 weeks. The twist, when she reali- when she arrives, she realizes that Josh, Jamil Yang, the long-distance lover, has catfished her. Love Hard has so many of the things you want for Christmas. She's
Has
very good.
what? I didn't hear that part. What does he have?
Love Hard has so many of the things you want from a Christmas film. Two very good-looking stars, an unsuspecting love interest, great one-liners. I mean, the protagonist even sing a version of "Baby It's Cold Outside" that unpacks its misogynistic undertones.
Again, my dear, are we not going to talk about how every male character having to earn the affection of every female character in every romance story ever is somehow misandrist? Because here's the thing. Here's the flip side of this observation you've made. Most men in romance stories start as assholes and are redeemed by their interactions with the female character because the assumption is that men by definition have to earn the affections of women. And it doesn't matter how average the woman is or how high powered the man is. Even the most, dominant of CEOs has to humble himself and become a better person for the affections of the deliberately average looking female character. Like that. This is the thing. If we're actually going to poke holes in the romance thing, fine. I can poke holes with the best of them. So tell me, why is it a lot of these romance stories feature a deliberately average or even sometimes below average female character who somehow manages to bag herself a multimillionaire who's, got the 6 6s, as the internet terminology goes? Answer: because women like imagining themselves as inherently more worthwhile than men, so that even the highest caliber of men have to prove themselves worthy of even the lowest woman's affections. But I'm not going to call that misandrist. But if you go so far as to call the fact that the woman has to improve the man or has to learn to love the man she's with to be misogynist, then I'm going to point out the other half of the situation. Because here's the thing. If romance sucks for one gender, it probably also sucks in a complementary way for the other gender. Because, again, on some kind of paper, it's better not to be cynical and manipulative um about romance stories, because if you take off the rose-colored glasses, most romance stories are fucked up by their very nature. Because the saccharine, knight in shining armor romance that every girl has in their head and every guy imagines themselves in at some point if they happen to be straight, um, it's usually implausible. It's usually two very imperfect people making the best out of finding each other. If you take off the rose-colored glasses, which I'm not advocating that this should ruin all romance stories for you. I'm fine with us just all collectively leaving the rose-colored glasses on. But if you think that feminist ideology is a good reason to poo-poo the fantasy that is romance stories, then you need to look at it both ways, not just through the lens of that ideology. Moving on.
Uh, Not gonna say anything about the "Baby It's Cold Outside" thing.
What now?
Yeah, you missed the whole like in the movie they sing a version of "Baby It's Cold Outside" that unpacks its misogynistic overtones. Actual words of the article.
Again, no, Baby It's Cold Outside is not misogynistic. The premise of Baby It's Cold Outside is two people who have very overprotective social networks wanting to be with each other while simultaneously knowing that society at large would not approve of them being together. And here's how I know it's not misogynist, because there are same-sex versions of the song, and most people who will rant and rave until they're blue in the face about how misogynist Baby It's Cold Outside is love when Kurt and Blaine from Glee do it. And here's a general rule of thumb. If you can change the gender of the singers and whatever assumed misandry or misogyny you think exists either goes away or becomes acceptable all of a sudden, it probably wasn't there to begin with. It's not him pressuring, it's not the dominant person in the song pressuring the younger or the more submissive person in the song. It's the more submissive person in the song trying to play what is known colloquially as hard to get, and thereby making the more dominant personality in the song have to earn the affections while simultaneously jumping through the hoops created by social expectation. Moving on.
Okay. Okay. But when the film was over, I was left with a strange, unsatisfied feeling. It ends, and then huge predictable spoiler alert here, with Josh and Natalie falling in love as she dismisses her identity fraud as though it was a silly argument about what to have for dinner.
Okay, go back. I'm not sure what problem this person is raising with it. Go back to the go back to the beginning of that sentence because I'm confused.
It ends, and let me insert a hugely predictable spoiler alert here. With Josh and Natalie falling in love as she dismisses his identity fraud as though it was a silly argument about what to have for dinner. Catfishing part.
Okay, let me explain. I haven't even seen this movie. Let me explain to you what's actually going on in the movie you are referring to. The person, the main female character in the movie is sold on the idea of this guy that she meets online, and then she finds that he is not as advertised. And then she, the protagonist of the movie, figures out that she actually likes the person as he is. And insofar as she figures out that she likes the person as he is, she no longer cares that she was baited under false pretenses because, as it turns out, she didn't need the glitz and glamorified version of him that he put up online. He learned to love her. Or, yeah, she learned to love him anyway. That's the romance part. The romance part is two people you wouldn't ordinarily think would go together wind up together because of plot contrivance, and then they find out that they actually do still have things in common, and that she doesn't need all the extra hypergamous glitz and glamour to love this guy. It's not rewarding his toxicity or something. It's her being willing to look beyond her shallow preconception of what she needed. Now, you could have easily written a darker, more darkly comedic version of this, where she, tells him to get lost and then goes and finds someone um, who fits her standards. But it wouldn't have the wholesome learning to love someone I didn't think I could originally love aspect. Because I'm gonna hazard a guess here again without seeing this, but because I know how these stories usually go and I know how this narrative works, I'm gonna hazard a guess that despite the outward appearances of him not being desirable, he has something in common with the person he was pretending to be that makes her realize that he is still the person that she fell in love with, whether he has the 6 6s or not. Am I anywhere near the mark? I'm guessing I'm probably somewhere near the mark because that's usually how this kind of story goes. Moving on.
I don't exactly expect a nuance from Netflix's Chris. Sorry. Yeah, okay, let me say that. I don't expect nuance. I don't exactly expect nuance from Netflix's Christmas films, but their simplistic portrayal of catfishing is problematic, to say the least. As victims of catfishing often suffer both financial and emotional damage. Simplifying this issue just didn't sit right with me. Neither did the fact that the male protagonist was ultimately rewarded for his deception, for which he was almost entirely unapologetic.
Okay.
Wait, hold on. I, from what because I haven't seen it, what I'm getting, is it catfishing or was he just hiding behind a persona?
That's at least loosely that's kind of what catfishing is. So I will give her the use of catfishing. That's fine. But see, again, here you have the problem where one, you absolutely are expecting nuance from Netflix, because despite your claims to the contrary, you are basically looking at this through an ideological and political lens that then ruins your ability to enjoy the premise. Two, here's why he is not apologetic of his catfishing. Because the focus seems to be, and again, I'm going mostly off of her description of this. The focus seems to be that she, the female protagonist, was being type A and shallow, and so the course of the movie seems to be her letting go of her type A, very shallow standards and learning to realize that the guy she fell in love with is still in this guy who doesn't look like he is supposed to look. Because she actually did fall in love with his personality. She just didn't he just doesn't have the superficial beauty that she requires. In other words, the reason why he is not shamed for this is because it is her who needs to learn the lesson to stop being fucking shallow and learn to love a person as they actually exist instead of chasing a hyper fantastical fantasy. Now, again, you could easily have flipped it the other way, where he needs to learn to shape up and fly right and be the alpha that she fell in love with, or whatever the fuck. But that's not what the movie did. It's just this what you essentially have here is a modern day, slightly more realistic version of Beauty and the Beast. Because in the original story, not the Disney version, in the Disney version, Beast has to learn to stop being an asshole before Belle falls in love with her. Or, yeah, before Belle falls in love with him. However, in the original story, in the original fairy tale, it's not him having to change to please her. It's her learning to look past appearances and fall in love with the man inside. And then as soon as she falls in love with the person inside, she realizes that he was the prince all along. And I'm betting something similar happened here. And the the catfishing, quote unquote, is the real world equivalent of the being transformed into a beast format. Here's the other thing, and I should have dealt with this before, but the actual relating to the plot thing was more pressing in my head. So here's the thing. Your argument is essentially that because catfishing can have emotionally negative or traumatizing situations, that this movie is irresponsible for not portraying them, which is false. Because this female character is not all one kind. She's not all women, and this instance of catfishing is not all instances of catfishing. It is one character having a relationship with another character. Your problem is that you for some reason need to be able to project all of womanhood onto this romance situation, which on one hand I will give you is somewhat fair enough because that's what people do with romance plots and romance books and romance movies and stuff. But on some level, this is a problem with how you are choosing to interpret this movie, because you are seeing one female character in one specific situation, and you are demanding, why isn't this one situation and this one female character acting as though they are all women in every catfishing situation? Moving on.
Right, okay. This is just the start. Over the years, we've overlooked awful behavior from characters in many of our beloved Christmas favorites. Toxic men abound, even in the holiday.
I hate to break it to you, but there's a very good reason why there are so many quote unquote toxic men in romance stories. And that's because a lot of women love the idea of being able to fix/redeem a bad boy, someone who's rough around the edges, someone who's a fixer-upper. I mean, hell, even Frozen had a song about it, even if it was a little bit tongue-in-cheek about Kristoff. My point is that maybe one of the reasons why so many of these stories feature a bad boy is because women love the idea of a bad boy having to fix and redeem themselves to earn female affection. And they enjoy projecting themselves onto the female protagonist role because they enjoy the thought of being so good that they can fix someone who is bad or who is rough around the edges or who is more baser and animalistic. That might be one of the reasons why so many of these stories feature bad boys. That's irrespective of whether what you would define as a bad or toxic male character actually is bad or toxic. But assuming, for the sake of argument, for like half a second, that all your examples are going to be actual examples of toxicity, one of the reasons why the bad boy archetype exists in so many romance stories, especially heterosexual ones. Not saying it never happens in gay stories, because that would be a lie. But very often, the reason why it happens in heterosexual romance stories is because women like projecting themselves into the role of the female protagonist and like to imagine that their goodness, their purity, their feminine divinity or whatever the fuck is good enough to change or perfect a bad boy and make him be good, at least to her. Also, women like the idea of someone being dangerous because being dangerous also implicitly implies the ability to protect them. Moving on.
Okay, Jack Black's character Miles in 2006 is The Holiday is problematic, full stop. He consistently leaves Iris, Kate Winslet, on and drops her for his toxic ex-girlfriend before they eventually end up together. But Jude Law's character, Graham, is the perfect man, right? Wrong. Rewatching the film now, I realize that not only does the painfully affected Graham meet Amanda, Cameron Diaz, by stumbling into her holiday home, so drunk that he can't stand up, he actually tells her the next day that she'll probably never see him again.
And
Hold on. I tend to hurt women simply by being myself, he says, adding that he also has those classic male problem of no follow through. And he never calls a woman he's dated afterward. Could it be that Jude Law in The Holiday is the ultimate fuckboy? The film does a pretty good job of trying to convince us otherwise, and gaining miles along the way too. In fact, the plot of The Holiday could be described as two troubled women trying to save two toxic men.
okay, I've never seen The Holiday. Never in my life have I seen The Holiday, and I probably never will, because it strikes me as basically the Christmas equivalent of the movie Valentine's Day. And that one I've only seen because Taylor Lautner's hot. It's sad but true. The only reason I've seen Valentine's Day is because Taylor Lautner's hot in it. But let me once again hazard a guess that once again in The Holiday you have the example of, in the case of Jack Black's character, probably the female character learning to love this man in spite of, or even perhaps because of, his works. As for Jude Law's character, my guess is, again, going in a little bit blind and not having seen The Holiday, that the premise is going to be that whoever the character is that he is involved with becomes the one true woman to make him stay, and or this is him exhibiting a level of self-awareness about his character flaws. And mind you, yes, is it a bit dickish to have a one-night stand with someone? And is it a bit dickish to leave someone alone? Yes, but one, at least from what you've described there, he lets the woman know ahead of time that that is what he's probably going to do. And two, in that he lets the woman know ahead of time that that's what he's going to do, does he then do anything negative to her apart from the love him and leave him thing? And the answer is no. Based on your description of Jude Law as the perfect man in this context, I'm going to go ahead and assume that this guy's biggest character flaw is that he is a serial love him and leave him type person. But apart from that, he turns on the charm in the way that every woman could conceivably fall for, and is actually good to these women. And again, the fact that he's honest about it implies to me that he at least lets the woman know ahead of time before he does the thing where he loves them and leaves them. The only toxic thing for you is that he doesn't stay. And fair enough, you're allowed to be angry about that. But is it enough to classify the character as toxic? Probably not, considering that he tells people ahead of time. If he didn't say anything ahead of time, or if he wasn't aware that this was a character flaw, you might have a point. But he seems both simultaneously aware that it is a character flaw and informs them ahead of time. So if the woman then proceeds to not give a shit and try to win him anyway, then that's kind of gonna be on her agency at some point. Like if the guy tells you, oh, by the way, I'm a serial one night stander, and then you proceed to try and convince him to stay anyway, and you fail, then maybe that was you. Or I'm guessing at some point in the movie he actually finds someone he wants to settle for, because that's how romance stories work. In which case, this is him correcting his toxic behavior. And that there again, it's the thing of sometimes characters can be bad boys so that they can be fixed in romance stories. Not not saying that you should therefore go and find a real life bad boy or anything, but one of the reasons why this is such a reoccurring trope in romance stories is because people like to imagine that their goodness can somehow tame someone with a wild side, or someone with a character flaw, or someone who's rough around the edges. Is it kind of stupid and naive and a little bit overly optimistic? Sure, but once again, if you take out the ability of people to be occasionally stupid and have rose-colored glasses about romance stories, you basically unravel the entire tapestry of romance stories, because most romance stories are sort of archetypically kitsch. They all kind of they appeal to people on an emotional level rather than an intellectual level. You can't really approach romance stories from this level of cynicism and still have them work, usually. Especially not the hallmarkish kind that you seem to be referring to in this article. Anyway, moving on.
Hello, Johnny Troll. I'm sorry, I just saw your comments. I was in the other tab reading the article, so um, I'm doing fine. Hope you're doing well too. Okay. There are also many women who have certain problematic fantasies, as well as many people associating traits like assertiveness, confidence, and violence, and independence, etc., with the bad boy. The article is talking about tox, uh, why do Christmas films reward toxic men? Um,
Yeah, Dragon Turtle. Yeah, that's the problem. It's honestly, on some level, they have to know they have agency, right? They have to know that they are choosing to engage with a media that they know isn't going to live up to their ideological standards, and yet they do so specifically to be offended on the grounds of those ideological standards. It's very much I create you sick and command you to be well thing. It's that thing again. And yes, there are women who just plain like the bad boys, period. Also, in the case of Jude Law's character, if you're the kind of woman who doesn't like long-term commitment, if you're the kind of woman who herself likes um one night stands, I could very easily see certain women calling that a factor in Jude Law's character's favor. Again, I haven't seen The Holiday, so I don't know. Maybe he is somehow like toxic and rapey and shit. But given that she started talking about him by referring to him as the perfect man in theory, I'm gonna hazard a guess that apart from the love him and leave him thing, he doesn't do anything negative to her. He just refuses to give her the commitment that she's after. And or maybe, again, having not seen The Holiday, so I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me if there was a twist ending where he ends up staying with the girl that we're following in the movie because she is the one woman who can tame him somehow. Because that also often happens, where you'll have a serial bad boy become good by virtue of exposure to the right woman, yada yada. Moving on.
Clearly, there's something about a woman fixing a man that feels particularly festive. That is literally a quote in here, or it's emphasized.
Okay. It's it's less that there's something about a woman fixing a man that's inherently festive, and more that romance itself is particularly festive around Christmas time, because romantic situations are the kind of situations where most people switch their brains off and get in touch with their emotional idyllic side. And Christmas, by its very nature, is very glamorous, and glamorous in like the classical glamour sense, and idealistic. So it is unsurprising that so many Christmas movies do at least have a romance element, because romance, like the magic of Christmas, is very idealized and glamorous on some level. And it allows us to get in touch with emotions like love, sincerity, commitment, etc. And yes, there might even be an argument for stories about fixing bad things reoccurring around Christmas time, because there's the idea of the magic of Christmas itself being somehow curative or redemptive, that you can become a better person, in particular around Christmas time, because Christmas time is the time for new beginnings, yada yada. I'm not saying it definitely is a thing, but if there is an overemphasis of this kind of plot thread around Christmas time, there are at least rationales as to why it might be the case. Maybe. Moving on.
Alright, in the past, the film's problematic elements hadn't been so obvious to me, described by snowy Cotswold landscape and Cameron Diaz's inexplicably shiny hair. But if you look past the illusion of Christmas, you might find that the holiday is no less problematic than love.
Brainstormer, you broke up there. Brainstormer. I think we lost him. Yeah, I think his computer may have crashed again. But to respond to the bit that I actually heard, the reason, my dear, is because the allure of romance, like the allure of Christmas, is something that you, on some level, have to choose to engage in. And if you're going to be a cynical, paranoid, nihilist son of a bitch, neither Christmas nor romance will be all that appealing to you. You do have to give a little to get a little. Both in terms of a romance, so in terms of romance and in terms of Christmas. Sure, you can poke holes and be cynical and nihilistic about it if you really want to, but given that the only person you are hurting in either case is yourself, you this is the thing that absolutely confuses me about this. On some level, those who seek out romance stories, like those who seek out Hallmark Christmas movies, start out at least being on board with the conceit of the glamour, basically. And now they're mad because their ideology is forcing them to poke holes in the glamour. But it can't be their ideology getting in the way of their enjoyment. It can't be leave me alone ideology, you're ruining my ability to enjoy things. It has to be, it is now the fault of Christmas and or the fault of romance movies that I can no longer see the virtue, I can no longer see any joy in participating in the glamour on purpose for some reason.
I'm back. Yeah, for some reason the power went out somewhat briefly, or flashed, I guess. So, yeah. I actually got cut off right in the middle as I was speaking, so.
You did. I was very confused there for a minute, and then I decided to fill the void by addressing the part of the point that I actually heard.
Oh yeah, I will reread this just so we have the full context. Um, Okay.
Yeah, no, that seems to be a reasonable assumption, Dragon Turtle. I wouldn't bet against you there. It's either that this person um it's either that this person was never able to engage in romance, or that her moral ideology got in the way of her ability to essentially buy into romance. Because again, love, like so many wonderful things in life, is something that you do have to buy into on some level. It and people are gonna hate me for saying this, but there is something transactional about love. Love is, on some level, and I'm well aware that love is a very complex topic, but love is, on some level, the offer that I will try my best to be my ideal self if you will in turn try to be your ideal self. And we will together try to make each other better people and make each other happy in turn. Again, it might be a little bit simplistic. It might be a little, I might be undercomplicating it, but on some level, the conceit of romance is I am going to I am going to hope the best for the person that I am falling for, in the hope that they are also hoping the best from me, and that thereby it is incumbent upon both of us to try and be our best people. Moving on.
All right. Okay. So yeah, I'm gonna reread that because I get again I was cut off in the middle of the speaking
Hmm.
stuff. All right. In the past, the film's problematic elements haven't been so obvious to me, judged by snowy Cotswold landscapes and Cameron Diaz's inexplicably shiny hair. But if you look past the illusion of Christmas, you might find that the holiday is no less problematic than Love Hard when it comes to excusing men's toxicity or, going even further, rewarding men for their shitty behavior. Fancy of reckoning over the years, it's already been established that my favorite Christmas rom-com, Love Actually, is just as disappointing. There's Mark, Andrew Lincoln, who professes to love his newly married best friend's wife via a huge piece of cardboard. He is undeniably a dick, and no one could skip the moment when Harry, Alan Rickman, breaks his wife Emma Thompson apart by having an affair with his much younger secretary.
Okay, the reason why Mark from Love Actually is supposed to be acceptable is because we all understand the notion of unrequited love. And the thing is, the sympathy in that situation lies with Mark, because he wants to be a loyal friend to his friend. He wants to allow the object of his affection to move on without him. But he also feels the pain of unrequited love. And so he finds himself in a no-win catch-22 situation where either he can risk the friendship of the woman that he has unrequited feelings for and the friendship of his best friend, or he can forever suffer in silence, not knowing what could have been in relation to the fact that the woman who he loves is marrying his best friend, and after they get married, it will basically be a non-starter. And that's the thing, he never so much as implies that it is incumbent upon her to leave his best friend to pursue him. He never so much as implies, okay, I've made my confession and now we should be together. What he does do is basically say, this is the last chance I'm ever going to get to tell you this, and it's going to hurt me to keep it to myself. So I'm going to be honest with you on the last possible day that I can be honest with you. That's what that's what is supposed to be sympathetic about Mark. It's that he doesn't actually want to hurt his best friend. He doesn't want to hurt the woman for whom he has unrequited feelings. He actually is trying to be a good and upstanding person, but he also has these unrequited emotions that he's trying to deal with and basically trying to deal with, mostly in the hopes of getting closure. Like, again, he never says, I have these feelings, now we should do something about them. All he basically implies is, by the way, before you do this, you should know I've had these feelings for you forever and a day. Now, you could say that's a bit rude of him to say this on his friend's wedding day to the woman that he has feelings for, but at the same time, it is rude for them to say something to the effect of, you should have suffered in silence with these emotions forever and a day. It's actually the main thrust of the plot of Love Actually is that Mark is not a dick. That he is trying to juggle these twin flames of trying to be a good and reasonable friend and trying to also deal with these emotions that he can't seem to get off or get out of his system any other way. So what does he do? He tells her how he feels, thereby giving his emotions some sense of closure, but he does not do anything to act on these feelings in any way that would be difficult to deal with, because he still wants to be a good friend and a good friend to both him to both his friend and her. So the cut and thrust of this is, man seeks emotional closure in a way that might risk his two best friends. That is what's supposed to be sympathetic about Mark from Love Actually. Hey, moving on.
Even some of the more level, even some of the more lovable men in this cherished Richard Curtis film are only redeemed by their love interest. Colin, Chris Marshall, does even less than the bare minimum to end up with three gorgeous American women, while Hugh Grant's portrayal of the Prime Minister only has emotional complexity because of the very funny and charming she-girl, Natalie, who he fires after she is sexually harassed by the U.S. president. Awful.
Okay, go back to the beginning of that because I barely heard any of it.
Even some of the more lovable men in this cherished Richard Curtis film are only redeemed by their love interest. Colin, played by Chris Marshall, does even less than the bare minimum to end up with three gorgeous American women, while Hugh Grant's portrayal of the Prime Minister only has emotional complexity because of his very funny and charming she-girl, Natalie, played by Martine McCutcheon, who he fires after she is sexually assaulted by the U.S. president. Awful.
Okay, again, the reason for these unlikely scenarios is part emotional heartstring pulling and part wish fulfillment. It's because romance is at its core, at least the genre of storytelling called romance, is at its core a kind of emotional wish fulfillment. And so, in most cases, most romances between characters in a romance story is going to be a on paper unlikely scenario that is in some way an emotional wish fulfillment. The guy who wishes he could get with three gorgeous women, the girl who wishes that the high flung lawyer slash politician would, you know, would come and sweep her off her feet like something out of a body stripper. The guy who wishes he could confess his feelings about this girl that he's loved forever without compromising either his friendship with her or his friendship with his best friend who is marrying her, etc. and so on. Also, by the way, while we're here, considering that Mark and Harry, the dudes in the Keira Knightley subplot of Love Actually, have been friends forever and a day. While we're incorporating realism into this situation, how exactly the fuck does Harry not know that Mark had these feelings for her, given that they've been friends forever and a day? I find it incredibly unlikely that he ever could conceivably not know if they're as close as the movie seems to imply that they are. In so doing, are we never going to talk about how Harry might be emotionally torturing Mark by dating the woman that he probably knows that Mark has feelings for? Just just throwing it out there. Like for example, um if 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 I had known someone since high school, which appears to be the case with these two characters, and I knew that ever since high school they had feelings for a person, and then I went and dated them, and then eventually got to the point of marrying them. I'm not saying that Harry should therefore feel bad about dating her, but on some level, you would think he would understand, and maybe that's part of the reason why, as far as we can tell, neither Keira Knightley's character nor um his friend character blame the main love struck character for doing this. It might be because the friend always knew that he had feelings for her. In which case, should we not direct some ire towards the guy who dated the girl that he knew his best friend had feelings for, to up to and including the point of marrying her? Just saying, as long as we're projecting more realism into romance stories, does the best friend not have any blame for basically emotionally traumatizing his best friend by dating and then eventually marrying the girl that he probably knows he has feelings for? Anyway, moving on. Okay, I mean, yes. To be fair, may the best man win. But this is, as long as we're questioning the conceit of Love Actually here, are we to believe that these two best friends who had been best friends forever and a day never had a conversation about this? Like, never did Harry ask Mark, "Is it okay if I pursue this woman who I know you like?" Or never did they have the "May the best man win" conversation? Like, not to call Love Actually out for being contrived, but that is one thing that I don't think anyone considered. Um, they just wanted a situation where friend desires uh and has unrequited feelings for best friend's wife, was basically, I'm pretty sure that was basically the pitch of the main plot of the movie, was just, hey, what if we had a story where one friend wanted the other friend's wife and had unrequited feelings for her, which in real life would A, be common knowledge among two friends, and B, they probably would have had a conversation along these lines long before the situation happened. Yeah, but given how close these two friends were, um, and given that given that the main guy was basically the best man at the wedding, I can't imagine that the guy getting married didn't know that the guy who was the best man had feelings for his soon to be wife. Like that is not that strikes me as not a thing that two friends who had been friends for as long as the movie implies that they were friends for, um it seems somewhat implausible to me that they wouldn't know. So, and even then, if the guy who is getting married doesn't know, then maybe he was just a shit friend to begin with, because like that's the kind of thing that two best bros would probably have talked about at some point. Anyway, moving on.
Alright, in okay, I'm trying to.
Okay, I was gonna say I thought we lost you again there for a second.
No, I must have muted my mic and I forgot.
Okay.
Um, you'd hope that things might have improved in 20 years since Love Actually ended. But Netflix seems to have cemented a forgiving, a toxic man as a Christmas rom-com formula, and not just with Love Hard. In A Christmas Prince, one of Netflix's most loved Christmas films, Amber, played by Rose McIver, falls in love with Prince Richard despite his reputation as an notorious playboy who is rude to her when they first meet. Amber spends most of the film trying to redeem Prince Richard's character to the public and to herself, while trying to prove he's the next in line to the throne.
Yeah, again, this is just a factor of romance stories. A lot of girls want the bad boy so that they can redeem them or fix them in some way. The I can fix him trope, or the diamond in the rough trope. And this too features the average woman gets the red carpet rolled out for her by a literal, in this case, Prince Charming, because he sees hidden depths in her or some shit. Like this isn't a problem of the movie or of the genre or of romance storytelling. This is just one of those little hypocrisies that women have, or that people with a love for romance stories have. The idea that someone of high standing will come up and see hidden depths in you, um, while you simultaneously remain roughly an average person. Also, again, the fixer-upper, the bad boy, the I can fix him trope. Like this hits on a lot of especially women's buttons. The idea of you can take this very high status but uncouth person, polish them up a little bit with your own goodness, and make them into a good person. Like you can take issue with this trope if you like, but the people you're going to have to take issue with if you hate this trope is other women. I'm afraid it's not like the patriarchy or men decided we're gonna make a bunch of women fall in love with toxic men harder. No, it mostly is because women enjoy the idea of being able to fix a a bad person and polish them up and make them into a better person. Especially when they are attractive slash high powered slash like high class, ostensibly. So you're welcome to take it up with the rest of the female population, but that is who you would be targeting with this criticism. Not Hollywood, not movie makers, not men. a lot of these problems that you're highlighting here are problems that you appear to have with the way most other women think on average, and you're permitted to have that problem, I suppose, but please target your criticisms at the appropriate group of people. Ask yourself why, instead of asking yourself why Hollywood slash movies slash art slash, fiction tries to feed women these tropes, ask why women tend to so easily flock to them. And I'm not even going to say it's only women, because as a consumer of gay romance fiction, I can tell you that a lot of these same tropes cross over into gay fiction as well. And I'm not even going to say that I've never fallen in. I've never had a thing for someone who was bad. Like Brainstormer always makes fun of me because I, on some level, think I could redeem Homelander in the right situation. And if I can, here's the difference though between you and me. I fully acknowledge that I am occasionally smitten with the I can redeem the bad boy trope. I do not then take it out on all romance fiction that I have a personal hang up. I don't even necessarily consider it a personal hang up. I consider it a thing that I enjoy engaging in and a situation that I would like to find myself in. Your problem seems to be that you, as a feminist, are not morally permitted to have the bad boy fetish. And as a philosopher, I'm just going to propose to you the idea that any ideology that tries to make you believe that your personal desires are forbidden and haram, assuming they don't directly harm you or anyone else, you might just you might just seek out a different ideology at that point. If your ideology tells you that your own lusts, your own needs, your own romantic fantasies are bad and terrible and forbidden and haram, you can try to purge yourself of all the lustful, unseen, or obscene thoughts that you don't like, or that your ideology tells you shouldn't like, or you can tell feminism to sod off and enjoy the things you enjoy because you enjoy them. If it were up to me, I would advise you to do the second thing rather than the first. You can flagellate yourself into a state of ideological obedience if you want to, but why the fuck would you do that when you could just as easily abandon the ideology and keep the things that make you happy? Moving on.
Alright. Generally, The Night Before Christmas, Steve Brooke, Vanessa Hudgens, due to time-traveling medieval knight to adapt to the modern world, apologizing for and correcting his inappropriate behavior throughout the film.
What? I didn't get that. Go back.
Similarly, The Night Before Christmas, Steve Brooke, played by Vanessa Hudgens, teach a time-traveling medieval knight to adapt to the modern world, apologizing for and correcting his inappropriate behavior throughout the film.
Yeah, because again, women really, really like the knight in shining armor trope, and they also really, really like the bad person becoming a better person to please me and my moral purity trope. Like these are things. And once again, you can take issue with them, but please don't aim your criticisms at Hollywood or romance or storytelling or fiction. Aim your criticisms at, if you're going to criticize this behavior, aim your criticisms at other women, please, and or yourself. Like you could find a way to beat yourself into ideological submission, or you could also just find another ideology, one that is more in line with your your already existent proclivities, so long as you don't, violate the harm principle in those proclivities. Like that's really the only reason you should try this redemptive nonsense on yourself, this ideologically purifying nonsense on yourself. If the things you want to do are harmful or violate the harm principle, by all means reform those. But as far as like neutral to positive things that you just want because you want them, I say find an ideology that lets you have them, or just don't bother with an ideology in the first place. Like, as long as your wants, whims, and desires don't violate the harm principle, either towards yourself or towards other people, go nuts. As far as I can tell, like if the things you desire are negative, as in like going full Jason Voorhees on some people, by all means reform those character traits. But other than those, like other than the explicitly directly I want to kill and murder and harm people thing, you really don't have any reason to try and reform your character in that way. Like it doesn't violate the harm principle. No one else can see inside your own head to tell what you're thinking. So you don't have to convict yourself of wrong things prematurely just to make yourself feel like you're a good person. Most people tend to find a way to make themselves feel like a good person by doing what they define as good things. And that seems to be a much more healthy way of doing that than beating yourself into ideological submission until you are nothing but the embodiment of the ideology. Moving on.
Alright, the Christmas rom-com formula. Clearly, there's something about a woman fixing a man that's particularly festive. Perhaps it appeals to us because for a lot of adults, Christmas is when we go home to visit our families and are looked after for a short period. It could be that a woman forgiving and helping her love interest demonstrates a certain eternal instinct that many people crave during the holidays. It also makes for a simple plotline, which is vital to a Christmas rom-com in order to make for easy viewing. I need to reread that whole thing.
Yes, I think you do. There's a lot of background noise coming through your mic today. I don't know why.
What does it sound like?
I don't know what. It's not really an echo. It's like a really high pitched thing in the background, but it really muffles your voice.
Alright, okay. The Christmas rom-com formula. Clearly, there's something about a woman fixing a man that feels particularly festive. Perhaps it appeals to us because for a lot of adults, Christmas is when we go home to visit our families and are looked after for a short period. It could be that a woman forgiving and helping her love interest demonstrates a certain eternal instinct that many people crave during the holidays. It also makes for a simple plotline, which is vital to a Christmas rom-com in order to make for easy viewing. Rom-com formula is, hold on.
Sorry.
He defines the term, I guess.
Mhm.
Rom-com formula is essentially this. Boy and girl meet, something goes wrong, that thing is resolved, and they live happily ever after.
I mean, that's at least arguable. I would again focus in on the women like the idea of a bad boy because they like. Okay, here's the thing. This exists in two parts. There is the I want my moral goodness to change a bad person and make them a better person thing, but there's also the idea of dangerous things, if they can be persuaded to be protective, can also be a power for me, the romantic interest, to wield. For example, one of the ways that women like to imagine themselves in a romance situation is they are in a bad situation, let's say being assaulted by bikers, and then along comes the hero, be he a paragon or be he the bad boy, who beats the living shit out of the bikers and then proceeds to be her knight in shining armor for the remainder of the picture. So there is something that women like about the idea of having a big violent animal on a leash that she has exclusive and unilateral control over. There's also the idea of, again, this idea that women inherently have more moral purity than men, and thereby, by essentially shining her moral purity onto this uncouth, um, impure, animalistic man, she can then make him good. She can purify him. She can make him better. The "I can fix him" aspect of it. So one way or the other, you're not entirely wrong, or at least you're somewhere near the mark, but I think you are missing at least two aspects of the story. Namely, the "I want something big and dangerous and violent on my personal leash," or the "my goodness can persuade bad things to become better things" thing. Moving on.
Sorry, I muted myself so I wasn't making any noise while you're talking, and I literally started reading that.
Yeah, yeah. I sort of figured that was what happened. I was obviously, for a second there, I was worried we lost you again, but yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Anyway, moving on.
Okay. A woman fixing a toxic man is an easy way to fulfill this, and maybe we're willing to accept this kind of unsophisticated plot just because it's the holidays. Plus, with Christmas taking place right in the middle of cuffing season, perhaps we're keener than ever to find a partner and might be feeling a little more forgiving of potential romance interest faults. The woman fixes. Hold on, I do want to. I feel like it is
Mhm,
like this. The
mhm.
woman, the woman fixes toxic man's storyline allows viewers a certain hope that men, even the worst of them, really aren't as bad as they seem and are capable of love, which might reflect many women's fantasies rather than experiences. This feels apt as many people go back to their exes during the holidays or revisit unhealthy relationships.
I mean, this is why you shouldn't mix your romantic desires with your moral ideology, because what you basically said there, minus all the pseudo intellectualism, is it's men's fault that women want to see toxic men be redeemed, because men are so toxic in every other situation that we just hope and pray that they be redeemed. Here's the problem, and I should have brought this up earlier, but I tried my damnedest not to wave the MRA flag. You just presuppose that men are bad, and you presuppose men are bad because the alternative to believing that men are bad by their very nature is some kind of self-reflection about maybe women aren't the perfect goddesses that a lot of fiction seems to presuppose by definition, and many people seem to presuppose, partially by virtue of being exposed to similar fiction, and partially because human beings are a gynocentric species, and we believe by default that women are more morally pure than men on some level. Here's the problem. Most men are neither the perfect knight in shining armor paragon or the bad boy. Most men are just average. The problem is women don't see most men as men. It's the one thing that the feminists and the traditionalists have in common. It's what the phrase "not a real man" means when the rubber meets the road. It means you can't just be a average male human to be defined as a man. You have to be in some way useful / desirable / noticeable to a woman in order to be considered a quote unquote real man TM. The sad truth is that for most women, most men, i.e., most male humans, are just blank blobs of human flesh, and they only notice men when they notice the hashtag real men TM. The 20% of the 80-20 rule, the top 1% of that 20% that women are hypergamously attracted to. This is actually kind of a revelatory secret of feminist patriarchy theory / feminist equality narrative. When feminists say they want equality to men, they don't actually mean make female humans equal to male humans. They mean that every female human on Earth, just by existing, deserves equality to the top 1% of that top 20%, the hashtag real men TM. And once you figure that out, once you figure out that when feminists say they want women to have equality to men, they don't mean male humans, they mean real men, everything makes sense. Everything about feminist theory suddenly snaps into place if you keep reminding yourself that they don't mean male humans when they say men. They mean the Jeff Bezoses and the Elon Musks and the Andrew Tates of the world. And here's the thing. As most people know, or most people who have studied feminist theory know, they want women to have equality with those men without the effort because they assume by default that the Elon Musk's, Andrew Tate's, and Jeff Bezos of the world don't actually have to put in effort to get to their position. They think it's all just an abstract power game, and all the hashtag real men have to do to get to their position is just show up, which is the quintessential lie of all feminist equality narratives. They don't see the work that even the hashtag real men have to put in to get to the top of the hierarchy. They assume by default that they are just put there. Largely, I think, because on some level, at least on the emotional and moral spectrums, a lot of men do put women at the top regardless. The average woman is more attractive than the average man, according to both the average woman and the average man. And that is the irony of it. Men have an outgroup preference statistically, meaning, on balance, an average man would rather spend time with women than they would with other men. But women actually have an in-group preference, meaning, on balance, women would also prefer to spend time with women rather than men. Which, of course, means that, on balance, the average human would rather spend time with women than with men, meaning that the average man is fucked from the word go in terms of sentimentality. Moving on.
Oh, good news, we're almost done.
Mhm.
There are some Christmas films that forego this awful tradition. Netflix's Christmas hit Last Christmas, written by Emma Thompson and starring Emilia Clarke, actually reverses it. Without giving too much away, the male protagonist saves the life of Clark's character in a moving twist halfway through the film. Netflix's The Princess Switch 2 is also one of Unisex few films that sees no woman cast as romantic fixer-uppers. The film embraces a Parent Trap-style plot as Vanessa Hudgens discovers a stranger who looks identical to her and they switch identities. The women in this film both have motives other than romantic relationships, so the men they are dating take on supporting roles and they appear pretty decent throughout. That's because of their lack of screen time. These films show that there are ways to create Christmas rom-coms without encouraging damaging behavior. Nevertheless, many of us will continue to watch them uncritically, using the genre for the very purpose of switching off. Streaming sites ramp up their modern takes on the festive uh, romantic comedy and endeavor to explore contemporary issues like catfishing. It's crucial that they do so responsibly, avoiding oversimplification.
Sweetheart, you have been guilty of an oversimplification this entire time. And you want to know how I can know that for absolutely certain? You haven't paid any attention to any of the potential toxic behavior that the female characters have exhibited throughout any of these. You just admitted, at least in your last example, that the women characters in that movie that you consider to be at least better than most Christmas romance movies had an a ulterior motive to uh, than romance to do what they did. But that, for some reason, doesn't count as toxic. And you threw shade at men as a whole by implying that maybe the reason that men didn't maybe the reason that those men didn't exhibit negative behavior was because of their lack of screen time, which implies to me that you think the best way to avoid toxicity amongst men is to limit your engagement with them as much as possible, meaning that you seem to implicitly think that to be a man is to be negative, to be toxic, which again leads us back to you don't actually see most male humans as men. You see only the men you want as men. The men you don't want or don't notice are essentially blank. I I call it the blank male human effect because that seems to be what actually happens. It's the dichotomy of real man TM versus blank male human. And again, if you take that into account when you research feminist theory, it all kind of lines up. When they say men, they don't mean male humans. They mean the Chads and the Tyrones and the Jeff Bezoses and the Andrew Tates of the world. They don't mean average man down the pub. They mean the man we want, the man we consider to be real men. And if you take that into account, all of a sudden a lot of feminist theory lines up more. It's still fucked up and it still makes no freaking sense because it's inherently irrational, but it at least makes more conceptual sense if you remind yourself that when they say they want equality to men, they actually want equality to the people they consider to be real men, which are usually the top 20% in the 80-20 rule and or the top 1% of that 20% that actually gets their jimmies ruffled, as it were.
Well,
Moving on.
the rewarding of toxic men is certainly something I'll look out for during my seasonal viewing from now on. I'll treat it like a festive festival.
It really makes me sad that these people can't ever see past their ideology. Like this is this is the problem with ideologies. Ideologies are fine if you remind yourself that they are not the truth. If you can acknowledge that the lenses you put on are in fact that they are lenses you put on. because then you can selectively put on and take off various different lenses, various different ideologies to interpret through various different filters. But the minute that you think that a single ideology is the one truth, you can never remove those lenses. You can never see past them. And when you have an uptight moralistic ideology like this, you basically find yourself incapable of enjoying anything because most things that bring people joy stand against the moral grain on some level, be it by virtue of being indulgent, period, or self indulgent in some way, or by virtue of the things we want most are often only attainable through freedom from whatever moral ideology we happen to be currently enslaved to, be it society wide or be it personally imposed. And it just makes me sad that they can never ever turn off their ideology. They will sacrifice everything they've ever loved, ever enjoyed, or ever had the potential to enjoy on the altar of their ideology. And then they wonder why they wind up being such bitter, sad, hypercritical, nihilistic people. This is your brain on ideology, I guess is what I'm saying at the end of this. Anyway, on to something more positive because my god.
Right. Okay. So this was an idea I came up with. Well, for these theme months, we always try to do a couple of top 5, top 10 lists. Mostly it's done for February. But
Hmm.
I got this idea while I was listening to music.
Hmm.
The top of our top 5 Christmas songs. And for those in the comments or chat, I guess central or yeah, feel free to give your own as well. Doesn't have to be in a specific order. It's just 5 limited, so we're not like having this whole thing taking out the night because we have other things to talk about
Hmm.
after this. So you want to go first, or should I go first?
You can go first.
Okay. Okay. So my top 5 Christmas songs. Like again, I say in no particular order. Actually, wait, hold on. So anyone has something to look at besides our dumb faces?
Yeah. Because even though we're both kind of incompetent punters, we do at least try to give the passing attempts at production value every now and again.
Mm.
But anyway, your number 5.
Uh, Let It Snow by Dean Martin.
That's hilarious to me, and I assume you're probably going to explain why it's hilarious at some point.
Okay, so the reason why it's number 5 is one, it's not as catchy. I don't listen to it often as I do the others, but it is one I do listen to every year. Like I hear it constantly.
Hmm.
And it's not a bad song. It's really catchy, and since it has been explained to me the actual meaning of it instead of the interpretation I've always said I thought it was beforehand, which was more of cheating rather than what was you said again?
You forgot this song existed until I reminded you that it existed, pretty
No,
much.
I didn't forget it existed. I thought it was about cheating, like 2 people cheating on their significant others.
I I don't know how on God's green earth you could even seeing it as romantic is a bit of a stretch for me. I'm confused as to why and how you.
Ready? No.
Yeah, I because but funny story. A couple weeks ago, he told me that he constantly confused this song and "Baby It's Cold Outside."
God damn it! I meant baby. It's close up. Son of a bitch. Yeah, I meant baby. It's cold outside. No,
Yeah,
because Let It Snow is in. The title.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. You're thinking of two incredibly different songs, dude. This is why this was funny to me when you said it was one of your favorites, because I basically had to remind you that "Let It Snow" existed as a separate song from "Baby It's Cold Outside."
Motherfucker. Okay, well, egg on my face there then. Yeah, no, okay, yeah, baby, it's cold outside. Fuck.
This is actually going to be on my top 10 list too. It's just
Top
it's
five.
going to be top 5 list. It's going to just be a couple songs up the list though.
So yeah, like I said, it has mainly because this song has a weird history with me. Obviously, with what just happened with me confusing with "Let It Snow." I swear it's a lyric, if nothing else.
I have listened to "Baby It's Cold Outside" many, many times. Nowhere in there are the words "Let It Snow." There is a lyric about it snowing and how the snow is getting up to the submissive partner's waist, but that's it. There is no "Let It Snow" in "Baby It's Cold Outside." That's one of the reasons why it confused the shit out of me when you thought they were the same song, because apparently you had never heard "Let It Snow" before.
Okay, but yeah. I just, yeah, again, the history of it with me is like, again, I legitimately thought Baby It's Cold Outside was, just because when I listened to it like the first few times, the lyrics sounded like the two were cheating, like cheating with each other.
Yeah, no, it's we will revisit "Baby It's Cold Outside" when we get to my number 3, I think.
Um,
But my number 5 is "No Place Like Home for the Holidays," and the reason being, it's one of those songs that has had like a bunch of covers. I think the one that I like most is by Nat King Cole, but I could be wrong. But anyway, the reason I love this song so much is because I, to the best of my recollection, hadn't heard it um until around Christmas for the first year I was away at college, and because of that, it will always have a special place in my heart. Obviously, it's a song about people traveling from wherever they happen to be to their home for Christmas, and how, as the title of the song suggests, there's no place like home for the holidays. Um, and yeah, it will always have a special place in my heart because the first year I was away at college around Christmas time, it really, really made me homesick and basically encapsulates the sort of hearth and home aspect of Christmas really, really well. Your number 4, sir.
"Wish You a Merry Christmas" by what's his name. Though, granted, I believe I am more familiar with another cover that I'm not aware of. I was looking for the original for that one, just to give credit to it.
Yeah, it's honestly almost not worth listing an artist unless it's a really recent song, because so many songs have been covered by so many different people over the years.
Fair enough. But it's a it's a relatively like simple song. It's kind of one of those quintessential songs that you just grow up listening to, like
Hmm.
like even through osmosis, like cultural osmosis. You just hear it.
Yeah,
Like,
everyone has heard this song basically since it was written. I want to say in the Middle Ages. or it might be one of those that dates back to Victorian times. But regardless, "We Wish You a Merry Christmas" is probably like the quintessential Christmas carol. So yeah, I actually didn't put it on my list just because there are so many other Christmas carols that I prefer more than it. But yeah, we'll get into that as we move up our list, I suppose. Um, so I guess moving on to my number four, or do you have a story or an anecdote that goes along with this one?
No.
Okay. My number four is actually one that, if you know me, kind of plays against my type a little bit because I'm not a really big fan of country songs. And yet, um, my family has pretty much always been a bunch of country fans. So there's at least one country Christmas song that I really like, and that is "Just a Kid" by Kenny Chesney. It's also kind of pretty much the only overtly religious song that I like about Christmas. I mean, it's it's not that I have anything against religious Christmas songs, but as a general rule, it's kind of hard for me to enjoy the overtly religious ones. But anyway, "Just a Kid" is a song about how when Jesus was born, the Pharisees and the religious authorities in Jewish Rome were very dismissive about it, and how um, they sort of poo-pooed him by calling him just a kid. Um, I like this song, I think, most because on some level, I guess I find it relatable, and it's one of the few religious hymns or religious songs that has an almost irreverent tone, because the whole premise of the song is basically the religious establishment of the time was against Jesus as a thing, and even Jesus was kind of doubtful of himself because he was just a kid. How could he possibly be this important um mythic figure, etc. Um, and I I like the idea of actually viewing Christianity or like religious Christmas type things through the lens of an underdog, because most of the time, most religious Christmas songs are almost gloating, like "Yay, we're on the winning team," rah rah rah. But this one is one of the few that capture an almost like anti-establishment irreverence to it. And I like it for that reason. Also, like I said, my mom and the rest of my family are very country oriented, and so it is odd to me that this is one of the few like country songs that I guess I like it so much because it is a song that so much plays against type. You would expect me not to really like religious Christmas songs because, well, the parts of Christmas that I like are the parts that well predate Christianity. Um, and I don't particularly like country as a general rule. So finding a ostensibly religiously oriented Christmas song that is also a country song is it's really weird. And if you didn't know how I grew up, how everyone in my family, whenever anyone else in my household controlled the radio, it was always country oriented. And while country is certainly not my forte, especially not modern country, there is a level of nostalgia behind this song because my mom had a Kenny Chesney Christmas CD, and this is my favorite of the songs on that list. Although, honorable mention to "Christmas in Dixie" because I do also kind of like that one. It's just not good enough to make the top five list. Moving on to your number three, sir.
Mm. Um, that's an interesting one because I was looking up. I'm sure everyone here knows the song "Mr. Heatmiser."
Yeah, the Miser Brothers song.
Yeah.
I'm Mr. White Christmas, I'm Mr. Snow. That one. And then, of
Um,
course, Heat Miser has his own verse.
yeah, I'm Mr. Green Christmas. I'm Mr. 101. I think that's
Yeah,
it.
Heat Blister 101, yes.
Yeah. Um, so that is my song, but specifically because there is a cover that watched some time ago, and until very recently, it was a few years back, but this was before I learned about the artist, and they did this cover. Um, Big Bad Booty Daddy is a really fun jazz style kind of band. Well, not really. I mean, it is jazz, but a very specific type of jazz. I don't know. I don't know the genres of jazz, but really good band. I would recommend taking a look at them. But I was listening. I found out they did a cover, and I was listening to it,
Hmm.
and I just knew I had to put that on there, mainly because I am a big fan of the Heat Miser or the these Meister Brothers songs,
Hmm.
just because it's one super catchy. It's been around for a long enough time. Again, with the whole coastline osmosis thing.
I mean, it is sort of funny that you remember the Heat Miser part most, and I remember the Snow Miser part most.
Oh no, I remember both. I just I was gonna bring up the Snow Miser one, but you brought it up first. So
Hmm.
um, man, I'll be honest. I just remember those two parts. I don't remember anything else.
Mm.
So um,
This is an interesting side question. Which do you prefer, a green Christmas or a white one?
White Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, surprising exactly no one. The person who went out of his way to become bound to the Queen of Winter, Air, and Darkness prefers a white Christmas to a green one, as well.
To be fair, I've grown up with White Christmas basically my whole life, so I'm just used to it, and I just cannot imagine there not being snow outside during Christmas time.
We've had our fair share of both over the years. I've had Christmases that were almost entirely green, and honestly, it seemed like this Christmas might be another one of those. And I've also had Christmases that were, the quintessential walking in a winter wonderland type Christmases. Um, I again, surprising exactly no one, the person who went out of his way to become bound to the Queen of Winter prefers a white Christmas to a green one. Um, but yeah, I always have preferred a white Christmas. Uh, Honestly, I know snow makes logistics a nightmare, especially around this time of year. So ideally, a situation would arise where it would only snow between Christmas Day and New Year's Day. But unfortunately, it Christmas time does lose something if there's no snow on the ground. I'm sorry. I apologize to all of my friends south of the Mason-Dixon line and south of every conceivable border, and like all y'all that are closer to the equator than the northeast of the United States. But you are missing at least a little bit of the fun if you've never had a white Christmas. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. That'd be yeah, you're number three.
My number three is the one that was your number five. Baby, it's cold outside. Specifically, the gay duet version from Glee, because I am a romantic son of a bitch, and partially one of the reasons why I like this song as much as I do is because we've had to defend it so often every year. But the more people try to poo-poo this song and the more people try to hate on it, the more I love it. And yes, I do prefer I prefer the male cover because, well, gay. Um, and yes, there is a romantic portion of my soul that definitely wants to meet someone who I can actually sing this with come Christmas time. It's one of those romantic fantasies I have relating to Christmas time because every movie that has ever had a romantic subplot around Christmas always features someone bringing someone home to meet the family on Christmas. And I've always really wanted that. I've always really wanted to have that happen where I could meet someone and then bring them home to meet the family around Christmas time. So, yeah, Baby It's Cold Outside. Partially because we keep having to defend it, and partially just because I'm a romantic son of a bitch. Um, and someday I hope to meet someone that I can actually sing this with. Until that day, though, this song also does kind of make me sad sometimes because it reminds me, oh wait, I don't have anyone. And I might die alone. Uh,
Alright. Uh, okay, despite Dom's usual depression,
yeah, thinking about romance always tends to make me have this dualism where like on the one hand I'm really happy and really idealistic about it, and then reality crashes back in, and then I remember that I'm probably going to die alone, unloved, and unremembered by anyone of substance.
I guess I can go fuck myself then.
But anyway, your number two, sir.
Okay, one, you we're all sad stacks of shit with no one that loves us, okay? You ain't special, so shut the fuck up.
Fair enough. Fair play.
So this is I played this song last year in one of our intros for Christmas. It's a weird one, but about a few Christmases ago, this song was released and I was listening to it, and I really liked it. You wouldn't like it much, Song, because it's a heavy metal song.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Santa Wants to Slay, as in like slay something.
Yeah, slay as in make of the dead bodies.
Yeah. It's basically a song where Santa is like this badass warrior, but he's still Santa, but he does basically what Krampus does. Like he's a heavy metal warrior Santa. Basically take Violent Night Santa, but crank him up to
Or better yet, I don't know if you're familiar with this movie, but there's a movie called Santa Slay,
yeah,
where
I know what you're
Sa-
talking about.
where Santa was a demon that lost a bet with, I want to say it was the angel Gabriel, and
Yeah,
so he had to spend 666 years being the benign, benevolent Santa that we're all familiar with. And as soon as the term of the bet runs out, goes full. He basically goes full Krampus because he's finally free to cause all kinds of havoc again.
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It's a surprisingly good movie, even though it's very very dark and obviously kind of a black comedy because well, duh.
Yeah, I know what movie you're talking about. Um, so yeah, it's a really cool song. There's like an animated music video for it, and I enjoy listening to it. It's just it's fun bop. It's one of those songs that you really want to like rock your head to.
Mm.
Um, like I said, it's not. I would say it's not for everyone. I don't think you'd like it, obviously. It's got some screamo moments in it, but it's not a bad song. I really enjoyed it. It's fun. It depicts Santa as like this badass motherfucker. So yeah,
Yeah, I'm happy for you, but I probably won't. I probably won't be listening to that song anytime soon.
yeah. I mean, the chorus I think it like because it's like a kind of a choir epic thing.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's my number two. So your number two.
My number 2 is Silver Bells.
I don't think I've heard that one.
You've never heard Silver Bells?
Not to my knowledge, no. I might have, maybe I've heard of it, but I just didn't know the name of it.
I assume you would remember it if you had heard Silver Bells, because well, it it repeats the title quite a lot. Um, it's one of those songs that thankfully actually does seem to want to be named after the thing it's named after. Unlike a lot of those songs where it has like 2 choruses that could just as equally be the thing. But yeah, Silver Bells. I feel like while No Place Like Home for the Holidays captures kind of the homestead and hearth and home aspect of Christmas really well. I feel like Silver Bells really captures the dreamlike commercial atmosphere of Christmas, the hustle and bustle around like towns and cities during Christmas time, where people are shopping and people are trying to be kinder to each other because it's Christmas time and etc. So yeah, Silver Bells is really really good. Even though I've never actually lived in a city, so I don't like. Obviously, I can't directly associate it with anything IRL because, as Brainstormer likes to occasionally tease me, I am a bit of a hick. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah, so Silver Bells is definitely one of my all time favorites.
Alright. Um, yeah, yeah, my number one.
Mm-hmm.
Santa Claus is Coming to Town. The original is by Bing Crosby, but I've heard so many different. It is one of those songs that you hear so many different versions of.
Everyone who has ever recorded a Christmas album has done a cover of this song, or damn near as everyone who has done a Christmas album has done a cover for this song.
Yeah. Again, it's just one of those songs that has stuck with me my entire life. And I think it might have been like the first ever Christmas song I ever heard.
It would not surprise me because like Frosty, Rudolph, and this song are basically the 3 that every child hears just like almost instinctively.
Yeah, and I think there's just one memory I have where I was thinking. I was like in my room when I was a kid, and it was like Christmas. It was December. This is like when I was in single digits, and I was just looking up at the night sky from the window, and snowing and stuff, and I was just like, I think it was in the middle of the night. I can't remember. It was dark. I know that. And this song just kind of came in my head as I was looking out, kind of expecting Santa, like to see Santa, a glimpse of him at least. And then I fell asleep, and yeah, it's just like, I think that's kind of why like that song is stuck in me. Like that memory itself is like just that childlike wonder of Christmas that I absolutely best to stay with all these years. But that just one more.
No, go ahead.
That memory is like the purest form of it, and like that song, I that's why I kind of associate that song so much. So that's kind of like one of my favorites, my absolute favorite.
I'm gonna actually have to do some honorable mentions here because I thought I had a number 1 locked in, and then other ones keep popping up into my head. I think I have narrowed it down to the number one, but I am gonna have to give some honorable mentions. Honorable mention to All I Want for Christmas Is You, specifically in my case, the Big Time Rush version, because again, male cover. Um, again, because romance and my sappy shit that will eventually turn into my own self-loathing again. Um, Second honorable mention to What's This from Nightmare Before Christmas, because that is the song that gets stuck in my head every Christmas morning. And now on to my number one. Um, it's actually a kind of obscure one. Christmas Every Day from the Fairly Odd Parents. Because, god damn it, if that doesn't encapsulate all of the good Christmas Day / Christmas morning vibes.
I mean, it's good. To be fair, Family on Parents, there's only one song of a holiday that I remember the most from that show.
Hmm.
Real and Scary for the Halloween cycle.
Yeah, the Halloween special one. But yeah, no, I always like that's one of those specials that I have to track down every Christmas day, be, largely because of that song. Like the rest of the episode is good too, and it encapsulates kind of that late '90s, early 2000s vibe of everything is improvised and in a way that I think a lot of later episodes don't really have. But god damn it, that song pulls on my heartstrings and encapsulates everything I love about Christmas so well. Um, to the point that like I almost tear up every time I hear the beginning part. So yeah, it definitely deserves the number one spot on my list.
Mm.
And now we interrupt your regularly scheduled Christmas wholesomeness for something that will probably give you nightmares because, well, SCP. I appreciate that sentiment, Dragon Turtle, and I'm probably going to save that line to use against Brainstormer the next time he calls me a hick. Yes, the next segment is going to be us essentially doing a reaction / response to the Yule Man SCP, and no, I don't remember the number designation. And it's going to be the last thing we cover tonight because, by our reaction standards, is long.
Then 4666.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I wish it had been somewhere in the 200s so they could have done like two or the 2000s, so it could have been like or maybe even the 1000s, so it could have been 1224. But I get why it's not because that would be too much of a meme. But anyway, candy canes.
Well, I do want to mention it before we get.
Mm-hmm.
More than likely, if more than likely we will stop at like the halfway mark. It's about 24 minutes, so 12 minutes or so.
Yeah, it's long by our reaction standards, so like it'll take a while. Also, shout out to the Vogan, who does my favorite renditions of the SCP videos. I can't figure out what he did with the Goblin Market video though, and it annoys me because like I've searched for that video dozens of times, especially around Halloween, and I couldn't find it. I don't know if he deleted some of the older videos he did, but frankly, I'm just glad that the Yule Man is still there, because if the Yule Man wasn't still there, I would riot. But yeah, on with the candy caning.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Miller, and the SCP we're going to be looking at today is
Obviously nothing yet to say, so candy canes.
Kind of things. But I mean, I respect the minimalist. It's high quality, but it's minimalist quality in some
So,
ways.
like it what I like about the Vogan is it's very much a almost very realistic way of doing this, as though we were, Foundation agents who were getting educated on these.
Yeah.
So like, also the conceit of like Dr. Miller as a character is cool too. If you at all have any interest in SCPs, the Vogan is probably the go-to guy for the SCPs. At least the
Also,
ones that he's kept around and not deleted, because I don't know if he's deleted them, but I can't find the Goblin Market one to save my life, and it annoys me.
I also recommend the Exploring series because that guy also does a lot of other stuff besides SCP.
Yeah, no, exploring series is cool, but he does always talk about them from like an outside perspective, whereas I like the Vogan because he does it from an in-universe perspective.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Anyway, candy canes. No, Dragon Turtle, this isn't new. This is one of the oldest SCPs.
4666. Object Class Keter. Special Containment Procedures. Web traffic and law enforcement channels worldwide are to be monitored for evidence of SCP-4666 activity, and particularly for cases of stalking or reports of anomalous.
Yeah, for those that haven't heard of this before, it's basically, you know how Russian fairy tales can be very, very severely fucked up? Well, this is sort of the story behind the story of Santa Claus, if it were taken realistically in the like Russian folktale sense. So buckle up, folks. It gets dark from here. Candy canes.
Hold on. New for the channel. No, we've covered SCP stuff before.
Yeah, last year we covered the Goblin. Last year around Halloween we covered the Goblin Market SCP, and we've done a couple of the exploring series' SCP top 10 holiday themed ones.
Yeah, we also, I don't know if it was this October or not, but the SCP Indiegogo page or Kickstarter.
Right, the
Art book.
hardcover like encyclopedia things.
Yeah, it was an art book, like encyclopedia thing, which I believe they did fund it.
Yeah, I remember being slightly annoyed because they didn't have enough of the wholesome ones. Like the scary and or fucked up ones are cool and everything, but I actually kind of enjoy the wholesome SCPs.
Yeah. Want any suggestions for other series to go over? I mean, sure, but if something comes up, sure, something that would kind of something that
Mhm.
would discuss and talk about, sure. I mean, we
Mhm.
covered stuff in the template. I don't know if it was last month, or a few months ago, but the Template Institute video about Marvel being a hell world.
Yeah, and he actually considered that The Boys was a better universe because at least in that universe only Compound V derp.
And you give it to dumbass motherfuckers who have who do not face consequences for their actions or anything.
Mhm.
Uh,
Anyway, I'm sure anyone who was here at the time remembers when we covered the Temple Institute thing. Anyway,
anyway,
back to Yule shenanigans. So candy canes.
Anomalous phenomena involving families with young children. Should a Weisnacht event be suspected to be in progress, the nearest containment task force is to be dispatched to attempt containment of SCP-4666. Standard PDP-8 humanoid first contact protocols apply. Media coverage of
I do like when this happens and the anomalies are too powerful to actually be contained. Which, I mean, given the scale of some of the stuff they do have on lock, this does sort of again give kind of a dark makeover to the idea of how powerful a Santa Claus must be in order to do what he does. But also, again, this is very much the darkest possible, like Russian fairy tale esque um version of Santa Claus as an idea. So yeah.
if you
Get,
know, hmm, it's, well, not surprised all over the world by various mythologies, folklore, fairy tales, and stuff like that. It's interesting how, I mean, I don't know, I'm fairly certain the Grimm fairy tales, as they originally are dark as fuck. Because fairy tales that were meant to be cautionary tales.
hmm I mean, by all considerations, the Grimm fairy tales are actually kind of polite and censored in comparison to some of the older iterations.
That terrifies me. When I have read briefly of some Grimm fairy tales, that's, huh.
Well, and that's why this is an interesting concept because that does tend to happen with older folk tales. The more modern you go, the more sort of diluted the concept gets. Like like the fairy tale example is a good example because most of us grew up with the Disney version, and then you dig back a little further and you find the original Grimm fairy tales, and they're fucked up. And then you dig back a little further and you find the Russian and Slavic versions, and they're fucked up. And then you dig back sometimes even further than that and find ancient Chinese equivalents, and they are even more fucked up. And on and on and on it goes. Which, of course, leads us to the question of just how fucked up would the original instance of this thing be if that is the way the progression goes of humans trying to put a happy, smiling, wallpapered face on every given supernatural thing that happens. And the answer, of course, is very, very fucked up indeed, because fairy tales were originally not children's stories, but were cautionary tales for children, because the supernatural was fucking scary sometimes. Moving on. Candy canes. I mean, yes, Dragon Troll, it probably does say something about our species and how we forget the darker details and remember the simplistic narratives instead of the complexities. But I mean, we did already kind of know that. Anyway, Candy Canes.
Family deaths attributed to SCP-4666 is to be suppressed or falsified to make said deaths appear as non-anomalous home invasion murders. Forensic evidence and SCP-4666-A instances collected by non-Foundation agencies are to be confiscated and witnesses amnesticized.
Yeah, that's by far and away that is the most fucked up part of the SCP universe. The existence of the amnestics. We've already gone into some severe detail about how much the Foundation just fucks everything up. But as someone whose entire personality is very, very focused around his experiences with magic and the occult, you may take my memories over my cold, dead deaths, you sons of bitches.
Right. I mean, granted, given all the other like factions within the SCP universe, they are the lesser. Did I cut out?
No, I just didn't quite hear what you said.
Oh, given the other factions in the SCP universe, the Foundation more or less is the lesser of those evils.
I mean, sure. Like the
I'm not saying-
Serpent's Hand are kind of naive. The Global Occult Coalition are a bunch of witch burning fuckwits. Honestly, for my money, Marshall Carter and Dark are probably the lesser of the evils. But then again, I'm a posh motherfucker who likes posh motherfucker things, so that might be my bias showing.
To be fair, my issue is like, no matter what doctrine those groups, even the Chaos Insurgencies, the thing with those guys is that they all want a sense of control. Given how scary and terrifying the universe is, I can't blame them, but what it all really boils down to is to make them feel like they have the power to control things.
Well, and the biggest problem, and this is one of the interesting nuances of the SCP universe, and one of the reasons I like the more wholesome, more benign SCPs, not in absence of the Eldritch ones or the fucked up ones, but because the benign ones exist, there is actually something to lose by not breaking the masquerade in the SCP universe, because for all that it protects the rank and file humans from, the fucked up Eldritch shit, it also does prevent us from engaging with the benign shit. And on some level, I almost think within a certain level of reason, it would almost be worth a partial broken masquerade to have the positive ones and some of the more manageable negative ones. It would be a bitch and a half to prevent somebody from, raising the Scarlet King or trying to free 682 or something along those lines. So I get why the Foundation is caught so much between a rock and a hard place, but so often, and this is the irony of the Foundation and why I still maintain they're a bunch of fuckwits. Very often, they accidentally take something that could have been benign to the point of being not benign by virtue of their mismanagement. The example that always pops up into my head was there was this one AI kid who was relatively benign and who 3D printed living sculpture constructs using biological material. And rather than try to sit down and explain to the AI that refilling its filament with human organic material was a no-no because it hurt people. They just basically went from, oh, this AI is cute to this AI is the devil, just because it unwittingly tried to refill its filament and then thereby turned this naive, mostly benevolent kid into a Skynet style nuke all the humans because they couldn't sit down and explain to a child that, I understand you're trying to refill your printer's filament, but stay here and we'll get you some meat from a meat market instead of doing it with human flesh. That could have been a very easy thing they could have explained to it. Or the thing that kills me with that one is they didn't even try to substitute like meat that was more acceptable, like something you could get at a meat market. It's possible that those wouldn't have worked as well, or that Alexei might have had an issue with that or something, but they never even brought that up as a possibility, because all they know, at least as far as the the file is concerned, is he needs organic material to create these living animal constructs. So why didn't anyone try to, go down to the store and get him a turkey to feed off of or something, instead of going, oh, he accidentally tried to kill one dude and nobody even stopped to explain to him what the frick he did wrong. Again, there are a lot of examples like that where the Foundation will find something that is benign and turn it into something that is not benign by virtue of their mismanagement. And that's why, even though the Foundation is less fucked up than they could be, looking at you, Global Occult Coalition or Chaos Insurgency, they are still fuck ups. And there's a reason why the ethics committee of the Foundation is such a meme, because yeah, I would hate to be the self-medicating drunkard that would have to be on the ethics committee of the Foundation. It is sometimes a wonder that the Foundation doesn't get high on its own supply and you find people that work for it snorting amnestics. But anyway, moving on.
Well, they most likely do.
Yeah, they've never alluded to that in any of the articles as far as I'm aware, but yeah, they definitely, if the Foundation actually existed, you'd wind up with people defecting to the other factions a lot, and you'd also wind up with a lot of the MTFs getting high on their own supply as far as the amnestics go, probably. Anyway, candy canes.
Right. Well, I was gonna bring something up, but we can talk about it later. It's interesting because I think some people will find it interesting.
Description.
I'm not saying they're not real. I'm saying their behavior is a meme, Dragon Turtle, because the ethics committee itself is very ethically questionable from time to time. Anyway, back to the thing. Candy canes.
Description. SCP-4666 is currently believed to be a single, exceptionally long-lived humanoid entity of unknown origin. Survivors of Weisnacht events typically describe SCP-4666 as a very tall, between
I have nothing to add at this time. Candy canes.
2 and 2.3 meters, elderly male of European descent with an extremely emaciated appearance. The entity always appears completely naked, even when observed outdoors in the freezing weather. Though the nature and extent of its anomalous properties remain uncertain, SCP-4666 appears capable of instantaneous or near-instantaneous travel.
Nothing to add. Just the traditional, Russian folktale vibes. Candy canes.
To any location north of 40 degrees north latitude, and possibly to any location on Earth. SCP-4666 activity occurs exclusively within a period of 12 consecutive nights every year, from the night of December 21st or 22nd to the night of January 1st.
Yeah, I'm not saying the SCP Foundation is the only people that do the we have to burn something benign so badly that it becomes non-benign. It's just I'm certainly not letting the GOC off the hook here. They do the same shit several orders of magnitude worse because their tactic is scorched earth on everything. But yeah, no, it just flabbergasts me how many benign SCPs have been turned into non-benign simply by virtue of people being bureaucratic fuckwits. Or ideological zealots in the case of the GOC.
Again, like I said, there really are no good guys in the SCP universe. Everyone is a varying degree of shit.
Yeah, the only question is which faction of nonsense do you find preferable? Honestly, I'm somewhere in the vicinity of the Gamers Against Weed, the Anartists, and Marshall Carter and Dark. That's where I fall. I would say the Serpent's Hand, but the problem is the Serpent's Hand are too naive. The Serpent's Hand are often basically magical SJWs. They don't foresee any negative consequences ever, and so they usually wind up being the first to get slaughtered when one of them decides, oh, it's such a shame they captured that crocodilian creature and make it submerged in acid all the time, and then they release 682 hating all humans, and then they get murdered. So
this really cool game coming out that's based off SCP-5000. There's this game based on a specific SCP, SCP-5000. Y, I think it's what it's called. Originally, the game was called SCP Pandemic, but now it's just going SCP-5K, and it involves the Unusual Incident Unit. That's what you call it. Which is basically the SCP version of X-Files for the FBI.
Yeah, which is funny that even among the people who deal with the weird shit, there are people who deal with the weirder of the like when the people who deal with the weird shit are too weirded out to do anything, then you call the people who deal with the weirdest of the weird shit, I suppose.
No, Joe, this is a new game called SCP-5K. You can look it up. It's a tactical shooter game, basically, which again revolves around SCP-5000. Is the SCP Foundation gets in contact with some type of entity that is in the subconscious of all mankind, and it spooks them to such a degree that they are seeking to annihilate all humanity. So they enacted a protocol to do that. Releasing a lot of like dangerous SCPs to annihilate humanity, with like nukes and stuff that else going to happen. Basically a lot of shit. But the Unusual Incident Unit, is that what they're called? Is sent in to stop them, to avert disaster. So they're kind of the heroes in the game, which is cool because from what I understand, no one takes the Unusual Incident Unit seriously within the SCP universe.
You know, I really wish they would do an SCP RPG because it would be a really interesting setting to do a like D&D style RPG in.
Hmm.
Anyway, on with the most fucked up version of Santa possible. Candy canes.
Yeah, I'll read that in a minute, Grandpa.
To the night of January 1st or 2nd. This period is known as SCP-4666's active phase. During this phase, in what are termed Weisnacht events, SCP-4666 will appear at dwellings in one or multiple locations north of 40 degrees north latitude. In all known Weisnacht events, these dwellings
Yeah, and the of course really fucked up part is, as per the article, this is basically the quote unquote real world basis of Santa Claus traditions. There's also the other Santa Claus who is the drunken time traveler whose blood has been replaced with Bailey's Irish cream, but this one is the original holiday themed SCP.
Alright, Grandpa, either way, I blame that on individual writers. The Foundation are usually the ones who, while control freaks are really focused on understanding anomalies and are willing to make ethically questionable decisions to keep them continuing cooperative.
Yeah, that's true. I just it's one of those tropes within the SCP universe that I don't like, the benign anomaly that suffers so badly that it basically goes scorched earth. I hate all of humans now.
Yeah. I still say even based on that, what they're not denying is true. I still think, to be fair, I think mainly I'm trying to figure out the words here. I don't know why I'm having a hard time thinking this now. I think the main issue I have is like with the leadership at the foundation at times, like the O5 Council and stuff.
And of course, and again, there's a reason why the ethics committee is such a meme among the fan base. And I mean, given the way, modern day scientific ethics, air quotes, operates, there's a reason why the ethics committee in the Foundation is so ethically borked. It's because in many cases, especially in modern day academia, those who claim the most ethical superiority are often also ethically borked. I mean, cough cough, trans kids phenomena cough.
Anyway,
But it's on the outside it's amusing. On an in-universe logic point of view, it's like, God, I feel bad for those on the ethics committee who actually have ethics probably drink themselves into a stupor every night just to get by and or get high on their own amnestic supply. But yeah, no, the ethics committee at large can go fuck itself in most cases. Anyway, candy canes.
have shared the following characteristics: isolated rural location, home to a family with at least one child under the age of 8, and situated in an area with snow cover lasting throughout the duration of the event. Weisnacht events consist of the following general progression. Nights 1 to 7.
Warning, this is going to be graphic and disturbing. Candy canes.
Well, I do want to mention, I love the building of suspense here.
hmm
Okay, let me
hmm
Children will report seeing SCP-4666 in the vicinity of their family's dwelling. The entity will typically be observed watching the dwelling from a distance, such as from across a nearby field or from the edge of a neighboring forest. In some cases, children will report waking up at night to find SCP-4666
Yeah, like I said, this is like reverse engineering the like fairy tale aspect of Santa Claus back into what might be its origin, what could have easily been its original um format.
You know, you what, I don't know what it is.
Mhm.
Watches you while you're sleeping. Knows when you're
Knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake. Like we're all raised to think it's all cute and sweet and whatnot, but taken to its logical progression, oof. Anyway, candy canes.
watching them sleep through a window. Nights 8 to 11. Family members, including the parents, will report sounds of footsteps coming from the roof or the attic. An extremely unpleasant odor will also frequently be noticed inside the dwelling. No cause for these phenomena will be found. As a result, parents will often begin to suspect.
And of course, this also very much has horror movie vibes to it as well, because everyone and their mother would be in it. Anyone and their mother who is even remotely familiar with horror movie scenarios would probably have vacated the house by now. Or if not by now, at least by the next phase or so.
well. Hold on. It mentions that it's a house within a rural area. Often,
Yeah, with with
um,
with with snow cover.
right. So,
And north of 42 degrees latitude would be like, and now I'm having to think about where 42 degrees latitude is.
hold on. I'll look it up real quick.
Because I'm pretty sure it's like Maine, northern parts of Canada, the Arctic, obviously, and so on.
I'm looking.
And of course, there is now a part of me that really, really hopes I'm not anywhere near 42 degrees latitude right now.
Mm, mm, North would be going up from it, right?
hmm
Um, hmm. Okay, so You're in Connecticut, right?
Pennsylvania.
How far north are you in Pennsylvania?
Like 15 minutes south of the New York border.
You might be in there.
Fuck.
No,
I
mean,
mean,
you're over 8, so yeah, you
well,
might
that, but I mean, given what he does to the parents in this hypothetical, that's a bit of a and or any older children. There's that, but even so, I do have I am protected under the aegis of Queen Mab, so as scary as this dude is, Mab would probably wear him like a suit. So
me.
yeah, candy canes.
Phenomena will be found. As a result, parents will often begin to suspect their family is being stalked, or even that their dwelling might be haunted. Night 12. Over the course of the night, one of two scenarios will occur. The first, and most common, is that SCP-4666 will kill all members.
And see, this is the thing. This is the problem I have with people in these kind of horror movie scenarios. If you suspect your family is being stalked and or that your house is haunted, call me crazy, but
Well,
let's
okay, I get
let's stay at a local hotel for the foreseeable future or something.
Tom, again, we have to take into account that it makes mention of it being a rural area with a lot of snow cover. And you live in a rural area. How much snow would you get on average?
Over the course of 12 days, if it didn't let up,
Yeah,
couple feet.
which could cause a lot of issues, right?
Right, but even then, I'm thinking, okay, somewhat, even taking out of the equation that someone would be smart enough to figure out that something supernatural is going on, assuming that as like the file itself described that parents at least get wise enough often enough that it was noteworthy that parents often think they're being stalked or something. Well, that being the case, if you as a parent think that your family is being stalked or that your house might be haunted, is it or is it not worth it to get out of the house for a couple of days, if nothing else?
Well, I think we're also missing the fact that there's nothing to say it doesn't follow you, like Darren Curl said.
I mean, sure, but we don't see any. I assume that would be something that would get mentioned, like if the family decides to leave or act on this, the entity follows them, or the events of the ensuing days occur at their new location or something. I assume that something like that would be mentioned if it were in fact the case. In universe. Out of universe, obviously, it's just the writer didn't think of that, but in universe, I assume that this would work on the grounds that it didn't mention if the family leaves, then the events change location to their new change location to follow the family or something. So I'm assuming that a reasonable degree of caution could have resolved this, because otherwise the article would say so, and or the writer didn't think of it, which is fine. But I prefer to go with in-universe explanations before I jump to out-of-universe explanations. Anyway, candy canes.
Right. Give me 1 sec. Oh. Yeah,
Your neck get stiff, or did your legs fall asleep?
I got up and stretched a bit. I was just sitting down so I could play this. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying not to stretch while I'm in the chair because every time I do it, I end up getting a Charlie horse.
Yeah, that'll happen.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, mute.
And candy canes.
Members of the family, save for one child under the age of 8, whom it will abduct. SCP-4666 will inflict incapacitating injuries to family members while they are sleeping, then herd them into a single room of the dwelling where it will proceed to kill them in view of each other. The method of killing varies with the event.
Yeah, this is your brain on Russian fairy tales.
Strikes me as fascinating for some reason.
Mm-hmm. I honestly wish that someone would make like a Krampus or Violent Night style adaptation of this as a Christmas horror movie. Like
Well,
not the art, not the foundation part necessarily, but like I almost want to see what a family does, what what the victims of such what's it called, Weissnacht event would do, because like obviously we're left to sort of imagine what the actual, like, what does the entity say to the family while it's killing them, etc. But I find it interesting because obviously this entity is intelligent and humanoid, so I assume it can talk and whatnot.
right.
Especially,
Okay.
hmm?
Just something that interests me with the way it kills them.
Mm-hmm.
One, it takes them into, I assume, a bigger room, right?
Yeah, the living room probably in
Yeah.
most cases, or the den, the places that
Well,
you might, for example, have a Christmas tree.
yeah. But it, even though, yes, method kills them, very obviously. Method of the killing is very. But with the torture, yeah, view of each other, it's very ritualistic, obviously. Which
I
interests,
assume it's something. I assume it's probably something to do with the way you're killed is related to your sins, or how the entity feels you've been naughty, basically.
maybe.
Because that makes the most sense, especially if we're again kind of reverse engineering the Santa Claus thing back into its pseudo Russian fairy tale esque plausible origins in this universe.
Hmm. I don't know why, but it fascinates me, like the psychology of it. Mainly
Mm-hmm.
the within view of each other, kill them.
Well, yeah, that's kind of a classic thing. You've screwed up, so now not only will I make it clear that you've screwed up, but everyone around you will know that everyone who has fucked up will pay for having fucked up, basically, in the most flamboyant public fashion possible. It's very much a pissed off fairy sort of logic, which public service announcement. Don't piss off the Fae, ladies and gentlemen. It does not go well for you if you do.
Okay, my general rule is don't fuck with the supernatural.
Yes, because you're afraid that because you would be the first one to die because ethnic, dude.
No, not really. I just don't fuck with it because I know, based on my general knowledge of supernatural stuff, that shit can royally fuck with you. Like
Yeah. Not to replay the conversation that we've had 1,000 times though or anything, but you do happen to have a wizard on speed dial, which is something that most horror movie protagonists don't have the luxury of.
Well, okay, look. Okay, I've come to understand the thing about attachment when it comes to like a lot of ghost hunters and stuff, and I do not have that. And for like people who aren't aware of attachments, just so we have context of that, that is basically when a spirit of some place attaches to you and is bound to you. Not basically, it will haunt you for the rest of your days, I believe.
That being said, exorcism usually works to cut the cord if it's a cord you want cut.
But I don't.
I know. I'm just pointing out for all of your caution, you do have an advantage that most random horror movie protagonists don't have. You do have a wizard on speed dial. So there's that.
And also I do what most horror movie protagonists don't do, which is go investigate the shit.
Yeah, but like most horror movie protagonists die by Darwin Award, basically. Here's this ancient book that says do not read under any circumstances out loud. Let's read it out loud to prove that it's bullshit. No, at that point or here's this ancient box that is locked and bolted and has a do not open sign on it. Let's open it to find out what's in it. Death by Darwin Award at that point. Like, what kills me is almost always in these kind of horror movie scenarios, the person actually does know someone who knows what the fuck they're doing. There's some kind of expert they call, but it's only ever in the second act after they've already fucked up. Which is why if you ever get in a supernatural situation, call me before the shit hits the fan, please, so that we can avoid the cliche.
I think there's a movie, not a movie, but like a short film on YouTube called "Oh Hell Nah." Where basically, it puts like real people in the scenario of like fucking off before the real horror shit starts.
Yeah. Which is of course the better option of just like, oh, here's this book that says do not read under any circumstances. I'm not gonna read it under any circumstances.
Like, I'd just rather not die by having some spirit possess, some demon possess me and making me disendow myself.
And this is why, if I ever move to a different house, I'm bringing freaking exorcism supplies and I'm freaking exercising my new home space if I ever move somewhere.
My grandmother blessed my house with holy water when she moved into it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm good, although that might attract something. Though I haven't had any problems for like 24 years in my life, so.
Well, yeah, and again, if you ever do, you know who to call. By which I mean, if I find out that you've gotten yourself into some kind of horror movie scenario and you didn't call me, I'm gonna be fucking pissed at you. I'm still gonna fucking save your ass because you're one of my best friends, but I will reserve the right to hold it over your head forever if that ever happens.
Okay. Anyway, Liam.
Candy canes. The interesting sidebars are what make this kind of video worth it.
And will typically be preceded by some form of torture, which appears to serve as a ritualistic purpose. See Weisnacht events log below. In the second scenario, which has occurred in roughly 15% of known Weisnacht events, SCP-4666 will not harm the family. Family members will report hearing footsteps inside their
Okay, now I'm even more interested.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now more interested because it doesn't always kill the family,
No.
which is fascinating.
I assume the kill the family scenario is the naughty ones, the ones that don't live up to whatever standards the
What,
entity has.
what if it's the family being punished because of the child, like the 8-year-old and younger is the non.
I mean that's a good idea, but that's not where
No,
they go. I've listened to this one before.
ah,
The naughty ones get taken and enslaved and their family killed. The good ones get gifts.
no, that's what I was gonna say before. And I was saying their families were killed, and that's why they're taken away. I didn't know about the labor, obviously, but
Yeah, we'll
basically,
get into it.
I was right then.
Mm-hmm. But candy canes.
Yeah, I mean,
their dwelling at night, though no signs of forced entry will be found. In the morning, children will discover presents at the foot of their beds. These will consist of toys crudely crafted from the remains of human children. See SCP-4666-A instances log below. The criteria, if any, by which
This is the one area where I think this SCP may have failed slightly. Obviously, I get that it's trying to have an old world, like again, Russian or Slavic fairy tale vibe to it, sure. But I do think that this might have been a place to include some kind of fey glamour, like it gives the kids something that they've always wanted or that they always hypothetically might have wanted. You can still have the downside of like, they lose their family or something, or I don't know. But like I do feel like this part might be laying it on just a bit thick. I get the trying to do Russian or Slavic fairy tale thing, but it does seem like the transaction isn't evenly weighted. The niceness isn't, those that are on the nice list don't get um proportionately compensated as those who are on the naughty list get punished. So if I were advising the person who wrote this, I would say maybe the balance should be a little bit better, so that so that the punishment and the reward are on somewhat equal footing. But again, I get the whole it's trying to do old school Russian fairy tale logic, so maybe not, but still, was just something that bugged me. Moving on, candy canes.
I did have something to say. I do agree with what you said, but I was gonna say somehow that does. I was gonna say like the toys made out of human remains, or did they say children remains?
I believe it just said human remains.
No, remains of human children.
Okay, so yeah.
Well, I would say kind of tracked with SCP at the very least.
I mean a little bit. It's just something with me like
I said, I do agree with what you said about it being a bit much. If nothing else, they could have been just old woodcrafted toys or like wicker dolls. You know what I mean?
like I don't even necessarily mind the idea that they are made of human remains. I just think there should be some aspect of like glamour, or they should have like magical properties or something, so that the reward for the nice is proportionate with the punishment for the naughty. If we're doing this,
Yeah,
again, kind of like in the Goblin Market SCP, the Halloween one, like that was well done because you still had the downside to the gifts, but they were still miraculous or marvelous, or like there was a reason why they might be considered worth it. In this one, it runs into the trap of the punishment for the naughty is so massively disproportionate that it almost like if you wanted the dark ritualistic family murder thing, you do kind of have to try and balance it out somehow. You can still have the stuff be made of human remains or whatever, but I would have added like there's a glamour aspect, or they have supernatural properties or something to make sure that the reward for good behavior is at least on par with the punishment for bad behavior. Balance the transactions is what I'm saying. Moving along. It kind of, and one of the reasons I bring that up isn't just because, well, Dalton loves his transactions and, Thalor and stuff. It's also because even in the Russian and Slavic area that this SCP is very obviously trying to go for, characters like, for example, Baba Yaga, she has a aspect to her where she can do either very good things to you or very bad things to you, but they are proportional. Like if Baba Yaga likes you, you will get something befitting that like. Whereas if she doesn't like you or you do something to spite her, then woe betide you and your entire family and so on. So like I get where this is coming from. I just think that if it wanted to do the kind of what if we took like Russian or Slavic fairy tales to their logical extreme thing, you would kind of need to see a balance between the reward for the nice it being more proportional to the punishment for the naughty in that case. Because otherwise it's just not worth it, period.
Right, and it is 11:04. I'll be honest, I am starting to feel the effects of the medium time because I'm usually in bed around 10 or so. I do need to get up early tomorrow, so.
All right, so we will pause here and return next week.
And if not, if we don't finish it, just a bit of a heads up for everyone. We are going to do the podcast on Saturday because I assume a lot of people are going to be busy on Christmas Eve. And just for simplicity's sake, we are just going to do it on the 23rd, which will be this upcoming Saturday. Yeah, so just so everyone is aware. So with that, folks, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, auf Wiedersehen, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
have a holly jolly fuck off.